Hi, I'm David Clark with Troop 57 in Palo Alto, California. Diagnosed with a chronic condition at a young age, I've experienced firsthand the anxiety and discomfort that comes with infusion treatments in hospitals. These experiences inspire me to make a difference for other children facing similar challenges. The goal of the IV LilyPad project was to create vibrant, painted platforms to improve the patient outcomes within Lucile Packard Children's Hospital at Stanford. These platforms would attach to the bases of IV poles, allowing children to sit, stand, and ride on the IV poles, transforming the intimidating infusion equipment into comforting, child-friendly companions. So over the course of 9 months, more than 220 volunteers contributed nearly 1,200 volunteer hours across 9 separate events to create the IV LilyPads for Lucile Packard Children's Hospital. The whole journey can be viewed on ivlilypad.org. These volunteers came from Scout Troops 57 and 4057, Palo Alto High School, Gunn High School, Los Altos High School, the Palo Alto Teen Arts Council, and staff from Lucile Packard Children's Hospital. To manage the project's massive scale, which would potentially affect thousands of patients over several years, I worked closely with various hospital staff to develop a multi-stage plan for success, from design to delivery. But let's start from the beginning. After making several physical prototypes and experimenting with different hospital-grade materials, the hospital finally proved my IV LilyPad design, and the real work began. First, I had all the blank discs cut for my design by a local vendor. Then, more than 40 volunteers joined me in an all-day event to sand the discs and apply multiple coats of base paint and primer. For all the events, I applied the edge method to teach all of the volunteers how to do the work. After drying, the lily pads were ready to be painted. I held 6 separate decoration events, leveraging artists from local high schools, the Palo Alto Teen Arts Council, the hospital, and fellow scouts working to earn the Painting Merit Badge. Finally, to protect the beautifully decorated lily pads and to make them easy to clean, several layers of sealant had to be applied to the lily pad surfaces. And to prevent the first layer of liquid sealant from melting the paint, I applied a thin first layer of spray sealant to all 110 lily pads. After another all-day event at the hospital, we finally finished applying sealant to all of the discs. Overall, project execution was expensive. To offset these costs, I worked with a local T4U shop to sell boba tea at a 2-day swim meet sponsored by my club, the Palo Alto Stanford Aquatics. Together with contributions from my GoFundMe page, I raised more than $6,000, covering almost all expenses.
You know, I get a couple hundred emails a day, but when I get one like this from David, I had to pause and stop and saying, we need to do this. This is going to help so many of our patients. Why is it important? You know, when we have very sick children here that always don't have the strength to get out of the room or to be wheeled out around the unit, those distractions and that little time that they spend out of their room or on their bed makes a big difference. And when the children can't walk around because they're too weak or not feeling well, these lily pads allow them to grasp onto the IV infusion pump and get wheeled by a parent, a nurse, a nursing assistant, and that makes a big difference. So that's why this was a wonderful project for us, and many kids will benefit now and in the future.
So my name is Robert Nakagawa. I'm the Scout Executive for the Pacific Skyline Council, headquartered in Foster City. And it is a real pleasure to be able to be here to recognize David for the work that he's done for these lily pads. I got here and I was just truly inspired just walking the courtyard, looking at all these wonderful things. I can only imagine the impact it's gonna make on the patients here. We had 270 scouts like David last year complete their Eagle Scout, just like David, but although I will say, this is next level.
Besides learning skills in engineering, design, and painting, I also honed my communication, delegation, and leadership skills that would last a lifetime. I learned that through compassion and determination, even just one person can make a huge difference in bringing a smile to people's faces. I learned that everyone has the power to bring comfort, joy, and support to people around them. And watching the first children enjoy the IV lily pads gave me an indescribable feeling of joy and fulfillment. But this is just the beginning. I've recently received a $7,000 grant from the hospital and will continue to work with the community to create lily pads and improve patient outcomes for several more years. Since my Eagle project, I've shared my knowledge and enabled 6 more organizations to make lily pads.